the cup and the league all to be won. Everyone knows there's a job to be done, and with a team so fine, I'm proud they're mine. We'll be singing this song. For we'll pass from Birmingham Athletic, and now we are on song. For we'll pass from Birmingham Athletic, and we'll go marching on.
The Dunfermline Athletic Former Players Association podcast is sponsored by Starnut Apparel. Affordable and stylish clothing born on the terraces. Listeners of this podcast can get 10% off their order by using code PODCAST at the checkout. Just head to www.starnutapparel.co.uk.
Welcome to the Dunfermline Athletic Former Players Association podcast, Walking Down the Halbeath Road. Join us as we take a trip down memory lane with some of the most iconic players and managers to grace the pitch at East End Park. From reminiscing about their glory days to sharing insights on the game today, these legends will offer a unique viewpoint on the beautiful game. I'm your host, Mikey Mutkiewicz, and on this latest episode, we speak to former defender Greg Shields, who had 2 spells with the club as a player and is now head of academy with the football club. In this podcast, Greg speaks about his career in the game, starting at Glasgow Rangers, working under the legendary manager Walter Smith, and training with players such as Paul Gascoigne, Ali McCoist and Brian Laudrup, before joining Bert and Dick at Dunfermline in 1997, where he would get the chance to experience first-team football and learn some important values that he still uses in his coaching methods today. Greg had a fantastic career in the game, so sit back, relax and get ready to relive some memorable moments as we walk down the Halbeath Road with Greg Shields.
Greg, great to have you on the podcast. How are you getting on?
Good. Aye, really good. Had a good summer. Been away a few times on holiday as well, so it's been good.
Perfect. Well, it's good to catch up with you as always. So we'll rewind right to the very start. Am I right in saying you were born in, dare I say it, Falkirk?
I was, aye.
So what was growing up like for a young Greg Shields and your early memories of football?
I don't know, I was a Kincardine boy. Went to Tullyallen Primary and just grew up playing football and as you do in the playground, you know, on the concrete, putting your jerseys down as goalposts and, you know, doing sliding tackles and ripping your trousers and having cuts and bruises, and that was just the start of it. I always wanted to be a fireman when I was younger.
Right.
Believe it or not, and I went through the years of just playing football, and you know, then it eventually grew arms and legs, became a little bit better, and got a little bit of interest for clubs when I was 12, 13. Still wanted to be a fireman. I never actually believed that I could become a footballer. So I think I went to Drayton Manor Country Park one year down on holiday. We had relatives down south, and I went on a ride at the shows, and it was a parachute ride. I thought, oh my God, I'm terrified of heights, so that was it, fireman no more, let's concentrate on football. I was crying as well. So no, I became, obviously then, you know, Rangers were showing some interest, and I was at, so usually there's 3 or 4 clubs sniffing around. I was really close to signing with Dundee. Right. John Blackley, who probably a huge influence in my career, very early days. You know, he used to pick me up in Reading. My mum would drop me off in Reading, just the other side of Falkirk. He would take me over to Edinburgh, and he used to train at Pilton. In the latter part of John, I met John a few years ago at a golf day, and he was like, "You wee," I swear.
Aye, go for it. Aye.
He says, "You wee bastard." He says, "The only way I was having a session was in Pilton because there was one player that was on Edinburgh side, and that was you." And he says, "You never even fucking signed for me." He goes, but you know, John Blackley was fantastic, great. I loved the way he was as a coach. I quite like, you know, coaches that get after you in the right way. John was good for me at Dundee, very close to signing. It kind of hurt me a wee bit that because I was a Rangers fan as a kid, my dad was a Rangers, my uncle obviously played there, a childhood dream. And it was then I started, you know, realising maybe I've got a wee chance here. And you know, they offered me full-time contract, and there was 2 or 3 other guys in my team, Scott Wilson, Stevie Boyack, who were at Salvesen in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And it was, why no, let's do it.
What a dream come true that must have been for you.
It was, and you didn't realise the size, you know, being a supporter, as soon as you go in there, and, you know, I think there was 27 boys in, full-time.
And how old are you at this point? About 15,
I was
16?
16, 16.
Were you intimidated by that at first, or did you cope no problem?
I was,
Into an environment
because
like that?
you're as a younger boy, you're training with guys that are 2 and 3 years older than you when you first go in. You know, it was Stephen Presley, Lee Robertsons, Levi Smiths. You know, these type of players, Sandy Robertson at the time, and you're aspiring to be them, and you're trying to learn from them day in day out, and it was hard. You know, it's hard to adapt. So you realise what these guys go through. You know, when we bring them in full time, it's tough. But the environment Rangers, they were all good players, right? You were always going to get better. You know, it was how you conducted yourself. You know, you don't realise that when you go in, the mental side of, you know, being at a big club, you know, no enjoying yourself like you probably should. It's a sacrifice. And I worked it out pretty quickly. It's the only way I made it. You know, attitude-wise, I had a great attitude. Not the most gifted, but just attitude-wise, and the work I did off the pitch,
Yeah.
you know, stood me in good stead to progress. But, you know, I look back to the kind of grounding I had, you know, under John Blackley, and, you know, how that helped me. I had a lot of good people. Alistair Stevenson as well helped me through Rangers at the time when I went there, who went to Hibs.
Hibs, yeah.
And now at St Johnstone. So, big influences during that time, you know, and people you still speak to now.
Who was your coaches at Rangers when you first
Billy,
went
Billy Kirkwood and John McGregor.
in? Right.
It's funny, where was I this morning? I was actually, when I was just coming off the golf, I was speaking to the pro there, and we were talking, it was something about our childhood, and I was saying, oh right, I said, Christ, this is, when I was at Rangers as a kid, I says, the coach used to, you know, when we used to do all the jobs at the end, he was very, you know, you've got to do it the right way, and whatever, it was a good grounding, and
Did you mind doing all that as a kid? Did you quite enjoy?
I quite
cleaning
enjoyed
and
it. I loved doing the boots. I quite enjoyed it, just because you're dealing with, you know, your Mark Haley, your McCoist and all these boys.
Aye, superstars.
But it was, he would make us, you know, scrub the grout in the showers with a toothbrush, you know, and all that. It was just nuts. Like, what on earth is? But what he was doing, he was actually giving you a good ground in life, you know, and
Discipline,
you know, life skill completely. Not that I do that now, but you know, it was these things that everything's got to be perfect. It's got to be right. There's things have got to be, you know, left better than what you found them, type thing. And just Kirky was like that. You know, anybody know Kirky? He's very proud. You know, good coach. And you had the bad cop and John McGregor.
Right.
You know, John was, you know, a really good coach as well. I thought he was good for me. Hardened mentality, would get after you. You know, would lose it. You knew where you stood with him. And then you had John Brown at the back of that, who finished his career, or at the end of his career, and, you know, you had the three of them.
Quite a fierce character, Brown.
Aye, but I think if you were a try-hard, you worked hard, your attitude was great, it stood you in good stead.
Yeah.
And I had that kind of advantage over a lot of players, that my attitude was first class.
So when did you get that first kind of opportunity to start training with the first team? You named like Haley there, and obviously McCoy's there, and Jury, and
I think after the 2-year apprenticeship, I only got offered a year.
Right.
And I was gutted. I was really, and there was a lot of boys round about me at the time, typical, you know, I'm just as good as them, that mentality, and you're not really. You know, a coach makes a judgment on you. At that time, they thought it was only a year contract. And it really, I changed my diet, I changed everything. And, you know, I would get the early bus in and the late bus back, whereas others would get the late bus in and the early bus back. And for a whole year, I completely changed what I ate, you know, and...
did you feel the benefit of that?
Definitely.
With your fitness and
was in the
how
first
you
team
felt?
squads, you know, within 6 months. And by the end of the season, I was playing. I made my debut at the end of that season. Then they offered me a new contract. So I signed a new 2-year contract, I think.
Amazing.
And then the following year, you know, you're involved, 7 or 8 games, playing Champions League. It was really a dream. You know, you're 19-year-old, you're playing for a team you supported as a kid. Mm-hmm. And you're playing with guys that you watched on TV, guys that played in Europe, that, you know, you watched them play against Leeds years before that, and just world-class players that you're learning from day in, day out.
Did you take it in at the time, or was it just, you're young and you just think, this is just my life, you just kind of take it for granted? And
You take everything for granted as a player. Mm-hmm. You do, and it goes by so quick. You know, Bert Payton, I remember him saying it in the Cup semi-final when Craig Burley scored the 1-0 game. I can picture him, he stood in the dressing room at Ibrox, says nights like this pass you by so quickly, you look back in your career and you'll think, do something about it type thing. And he's right, it goes by so quick and you do take things for granted. You didn't enjoy it as much as what you should as well. You know, I was a serious player.
Yeah.
I look at others that enjoyed it more. And that's probably one of my biggest regrets. But coming through and that, breaking into a first team then with they type of players, just a great squad.
Amazing. What was it like going to training with your Gazas and McCoys, Loudrops?
I think you don't really feel part of it because you're a young boy, right? You're breaking in, you're trying to impress every day. You're the one who probably gives the ball away more than everybody, and you're living on a knife's edge when you're training. But it was just you gave them the ball. You always gave them the ball, right, and made yourself look good. Even when you played in the first team game, as well. If you give the ball a Loudrop,
yeah,
he'll make something happen. You can run for him, and any time you run, he finds you every single time.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was the easy part, but just I think you just took it in your stride as a young player. You know, you're excited every day, and that excitement throughout your career, it kind of wears off a wee bit.
Yeah.
Always wish
you never seen it as a chore. You just absolutely buzzing to just play football.
Not at all. I remember years ago, me and Big Scott Wilson, we went in on work experience. I think we were in third year at high school, and Rangers trained at Jordan Hill at the time, and all the other guys in our years were going to work placement at Bakers or whatever, and we were lucky, we'll go into Rangers. So we went in and it was Archie Knox and Walter Smith. They put us in with the first team, trained us with the first team that day, and it was Terry Hurlock, Mo Johnston, Mel Sterland, all these guys, and you had your Hatelys, your Goffs and all that. But me and Scott were doing your 5v2s and we were in the box all day. But what I didn't realise at the time, I was like, oh my God, we're shiting ourselves training with these guys, we're so bad. But what he was trying to do was, you know, make you realise how good these guys were and to aspire to get to there. Yep. I didn't realise that at the time, but when you look back, it was like, it was a huge wake-up call. We thought we were good, but the guys were absolutely brilliant. And to be fair, you know, the players were good with us as well at that point.
You mentioned there Walter Smith. What was it like working under Walter?
I like anybody. I mean, anybody says, you know, the guys are really good. He was a great manager. I didn't know him as well as what I've known other managers because I always felt you were on the periphery being a young boy breaking into Rangers. I didn't play a lot of games there, I think 11 games. But he was great with us, you know, very fair, really fair, honest. And just, you know, he liked young boys breaking through into it, and I think he realised how hard it was for the young boys during that period. But he had a job to do. You know, Rangers were going for 9 in a row. They got it. You know, part of history that people look back on, one of the best Rangers teams, you know.
What a time to be at the club for you, eh?
50 years. It was
as
great.
A fan as well at the time.
It was. You know, you get caught up in it, you know, being an Old Firm player and
of course,
whatever, you know. And now, I keep saying this to people, you know, it does not bother me, Rangers and Celtic, one bit.
Nah.
One bit, you get away from it, you move on. I've never been back. In fact, I've sat in Ibrox once. I took an American team back years ago, watched them play against Cowdenbeath. It's the only time I've been back. Obviously in the cup with Dunfermline as well, but actually in the stadium.
Aye, as a punter, so to speak.
I never usually come back to clubs I've been at before. But
apart from here.
Aye, 3 times.
You mentioned earlier playing in the Champions League. You played twice. Once was against Ajax, and I think was it Marseille, the other game? Auxerre. So what's your memories of playing in these games? Like
we lost
18
both
years
games.
old.
We lost both games, so it wasn't that.
But what a game, what an experience.
I think the Ajax game, it was forced on. You know, I think I played my 5th game that night, and Big Scott actually made his debut. But you're playing against, you know, I think I was against Overmars that night.
I looked at the Ajax team, Greg, like Van der Sar, Mario Melchiot, Frank de Boer, Ronald de Boer, Danny, Patrick Kluivert, Mark Overmars. Like superstars, eh?
It was, and I think I played wing back that night. It was more of a 5 and Big Scott played behind me, but I think Overmars got by us once. He still got through my legs and Big Scott smashed them. Great tackle. I think Scott went on to get man of the match, but it was just, what an experience. But you didn't realise, see when you're playing in this, it was we stood together in the warm-up, me and Scott, and we did it together as young boys do. You stick together, and I think it was Coisty, you run by Coisty and he says, don't worry about it, boys. He says, there's 20 million people watching you tonight on TV. me and
No
Scott
pressure.
just like, fuck, we're away. But the experiences, you think they're going to last forever. They're not.
Nah.
And that was probably one thing, you you don't soak it up as much as what you probably should. But you're young and naive, right? But I think what you're praying for is you're not going to have a nightmare. And that night was just a great night. I think it was the boy Shulton that scored from distance against Snelders, I think, 25 yards maybe. But, you know, these guys after that, Ajax players went on to have great careers as well, eh?
Yeah.
You know, but what an experience.
Standing in that line with the Champions League anthem.
Aye.
It's magic, eh?
It was, aye. But the other game, I think it was Auxerre, I think it was Guiraud, the manager. He'd been there for so many years. And the wee guy that I played against that night was a wee boy called Fabrice Lepau. And I came through the youths playing against him, so I was familiar to what he was like. Quite small, really, really crafty, very quick. I think he gave me a hard time that night. We lost the game 2-1 or 1-0, I can't remember what it was, but just playing abroad for Rangers, you know, or playing abroad for any team was a great experience.
Yeah.
It's really tough travelling in Europe.
Brilliant. What for your time at Rangers, what were the highs and the lows during that period?
I think the highs was making your debut. You know, I made my debut at Kilmarnock, and I played right centre back, and it was at the time where you're a right centre back at Rangers, you could bomb forward.
Right.
You could overlap, and you know, I think it was Trevor Stephen that played right wing back. And the first time the ball came to me, it was Steve Maskery.
Oh yeah, I remember. It
He
was
played
at
St Johnstone.
aye.
He went to Kilmarnock, or it was maybe Paul Wright or whoever. I'm sure it was Maskery. I played a diagonal ball, and it hit Steve Maskery, and it came back to me. And he knew it was my debut, and I think he said to me, "Don't you worry about you, man. Go and try again." So I just played this diagonal right over. I thought, here we go, brilliant. But that was great. It was just the adrenaline gets you through your debuts all the time. You know, I don't think I had a bad debut. I think your adrenaline does get you through.
Yeah.
And Rangers went on to win that game 3-0. I got a speeding fine coming back that day as well.
Did you?
But they nights, you know, your Champions League nights is great. Just even when you're out with them, you know, it's a real team, a real togetherness. You know, even the younger boys are all together.
There's still a big drinking culture at Rangers during that time as well, eh? So were you on nights out with all these guys?
A couple, but I wasn't on them all. Eh? You'd go out now and again, but you know, you're just a young boy. You're trying to look after yourself. You don't want to get caught up in it all. And I was quite smart that way.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it when you can, and you know, even when you travelled with them, there were some great nights. Great nights. You know, the Vlade Kafkas coming back in the plane. I think they won 7-3 in aggregate. And it was the time, you know, when the players get a massive bonus during that when they qualify for the Champions League. So you're coming back in the flight. You know, it was just a great night. Nights like that you remember.
Yeah.
You know, and it just goes by so quickly.
Brilliant. What about the lows?
A lot of injuries.
So at a young age,
At Rangers, I think I had a couple of cartilage operations at Rangers as a kid. I think rejection at the time, you know, when you got offered that contract, but then you've got to prove, when you face adversity, you've got to try and prove people wrong. And we're always telling young boys that, you know, you get more, you know, downs and ups in your life, and it's how you respond. So I'd probably say that. I wouldn't say I had a lot, not at all. You know, I had a lot of bollockings, mind you, that, you know, at the time was, you know, it was normal. There was that fear, but I think it was just at times when it got really hard as a footballer. It does get really hard. You know, you have 5 or 6 weeks of playing poorly, and you think, I'm never going to go to this.
Yeah.
And that's just part of development.
Yeah.
You know, it's part of, you know, what our young boys are going through now too. That's life.
Do you think if you had the mentality you've got now at 16, you'd have progressed even further in your career?
I think so. I'd have certainly stayed down south longer.
Yeah.
Aye. And not came back too early. I was really young at the time. We've probably gone to that in a minute.
We'll touch on that, yeah.
Aye, but I think, you know, I left Rangers at the right time. I remember playing a reserve game at Falkirk, and I'm sure Dick and Bert were at the game. And I think Rangers called me the week after and said, look, or they brought me in and said, look, Dunfermline are interested in you. I had a couple of years left of my contract. And I think because I had a taste of playing, you know, 11 games that season, and the buzz of playing in front of fans, the excitement, I just felt it was the right time to go. And because you had Perini, they just signed Amoruso, I wasn't want to go back. They had Stevie Wright, they had Craig Moore, they had Alec Leland. I was like, when am I going to play? So I came to Dunfermline, you know, and I never looked back, because I I had Dick and Bert there, and they signed us. You know, they were very loyal to me. I played 86 games in a row. My debut was against Motherwell out here and we lost.
Yeah, I remember that game. I was here.
Aye, second game I went to Parkhead and won.
Yeah.
So it was weird. I lost to Motherwell, but we go to Parkhead and win. It was bizarre. But, you know, just, I loved Dick's coaching. Just, I'm not saying his day-to-day stuff, but just his overall, how he taught me to defend. At Rangers, you've always got the ball. And I always see that with players that we bring in on loan in the past, that they're a team that dominates the ball.
Yeah.
It's what you do off the ball. That's how you lose goals. And me being a defender coming to Dunfermline, I was wide open at times because you're used to having the ball.
Yeah.
And I think Dick and Bert, they pull their hair out, or they throw their wee tammy in the ground at the time. You know, I think, what's this guy doing? But Dick kind of grabbed me, he collared me, he fathered me in a really good way that, you know, this is what you do, this is what you position it, this is how you tuck around, this is, you know, balls there. And he was very good with us. And the amount of times I'd be out on the pitch, and you know, only time Kevin and Willie let us on the pitch was when Frenchie was on it.
Right.
So Frenchie was on the pitch, we were there on the pitch. So I remember opening up, banging balls in, just visualising stuff as well. And Dick was fantastic for that time in my career. Really good.
Superb.
You know, Bert was a watcher, but Dick was a coach.
Yeah, we'll go back to Bert and Dick and join Dunfermline, but before that, when you're going back to Rangers, you got 2 caps for Scotland at under 21. So what was that like playing for your country?
I never really played that well at 21s. I can't remember who it was against Latvia and somebody, or Estonia or somebody like that. And
yeah.
I can't remember.
It was Austria and Latvia.
Austria. And I didn't, the Austria game was okay. But the Latvia game, I was poor. I think I got dropped for the Estonia game. Tommy Craig was the coach, and I struggled. I had a bad game, and I didn't think I came back after that. Which, to be honest, I didn't deserve to come back. I never played well, but it wasn't a really good experience for me with Scotland 21s. I'd always enjoyed going away with the national team. You know, being hamper boy or whatever, and joining and training with, you know, in the preparation of World Cup squad, and you know, with your Collinses, your Juries and all that during that time and mixed days. But you know, I only played 2 games international. Maybe I think I maybe grew out of it or whatever. I don't know.
Who was in around the Scotland 21s at that point?
I think it was like Jim Hamilton, Charlie Miller, Kevin Harpers, Gary Locks, all these boys during that period. I think it was anyway. They'd be about ages with us. So it was, you know, a good competitive team, but I maybe been a bit harsh on myself there. I never played well, but you know, I never got called back.
So you never had aspirations to play for Scotland?
I did, aye.
Aye.
I felt the only time I ever came, well, twice, was when I was down at Charlton. Craig Brown came down to watch us. We played West Brom, and we drew 0-0. And I think somebody asked him after the game, he says, like, what are you down for? I'm down to watch Greg. And I think it was a period when they were down at Wembley. Scotland beat England at Wembley with Don Hutchison.
Yeah,
during that, I'm not going to get called in for a squad then. I had a bad injury after that, you know. I think it was my knee ACL I did. So then it set me back a wee bit, and I felt the latter part when I came back to Kilmarnock playing it there is probably one of the best. When I went down to Charlton when I was at Kilmarnock, it was probably one of the best times in my career I've played, performed, and I felt I was close then, but I got called into a B squad there, played against Turkey. Bertie Votes didn't even know my name. I think he called me Graham Shields. I'm like, all right, Stevie Votes.
So after that, you know this isn't happening.
I knew it wasn't happening after that.
No.
You can't just accept that, eh? You know, that's just life. I'm maybe too old now and whatever, you know, but I've got to move it to Dunfermline back after it, so.
Yeah.
You know, but.
Going back to then joining Dunfermline from Rangers, Dick and Bert, you obviously spoke about them. What was it like when you first come in here and the dressing room environment and some of the characters? What was it like as a young boy coming into that?
It was different. I remember my first day with Joe Nelson, brilliant, absolute legend, Joe. He'd have my kit there, rolled up perfectly, soft as anything. I was a Vec at the time. And I was looking at this thing, oh my God, you're used to Adidas and you're spoilt.
Yeah.
You know, but wee Joe would bend over backwards for you, wee Doug would be walking along beside him. You know, a lot of characters. You know, Andy Smith was there, Jerry Britton, just big evil, you know, Toddy. I knew I was coming to a group that weren't as talented, but it was a kick on in my career. You know, it was, you know, I'm going to come back here and do as well as I possibly can and see what happens. But a good group of boys. Colin Miller was there. Alan Moore. I love playing with Alan Moore. We had a great working relationship together. You know, I would run by him and he would sit type thing, and this, you know, it was just good chemistry.
There's a real togetherness at that point. They had created a good group of players.
Peachy was on the other side, and it was Bingy, Frenchy, Harry Curran. Loved playing with Harry Curran. Loved Harry. He was one of the guys who was like Gary Mason when he never played in the team.
Never got the credit, Harry Curran. All the players you speak to rave about him.
Great guy, and I could never understand why. But Big Smudger had a great season that year. And I think it was, you know, you're a young boy. These guys are experienced pros. You have to come and improve yourself. I think that was the fear. And it took me a wee while, actually. It did. I think we went pre-season somewhere. It took me a wee while to really hit the heights.
Yeah, I think we maybe went up north.
We did,
pre-season,
We did. I think it was Strathpeffer or something like that, or maybe Inverness, played Clarknacuddin or whoever. But these times were great. You could see how close they were as a group and how confident they were with each other as well. The season before that, they finished 5th in the league.
They did, yeah.
Had a 5th or 6th. They had a great season. So you were coming into that, the pressures of, you know, Jackie leaving 2 years before or a year and a half before. Big Evo was a right back then. Big Evo was a fan's favourite. You know, I came in and played instead of Evo. You had that. Evo then changed position. He went wide right when Murray wasn't playing. Became a squad player at that point. So I knew what I was coming into, but I grabbed the opportunity and
brilliant.
I loved it.
Well, you played 36 games that season, and then the following season was a bit tougher. You played 36 again, but Bert leaves that season and Dick takes over. It was a really tough season, that one, eh?
They're all league games.
Just league games,
yeah. I never missed a game with them. It was 86 games over 2 years I played. And Bert, we were struggling. We kept on drawing the second season. And I think Bert at the time, it was during the winter break that Bert left. And I was away. I think I went to Malaga or something with my wife. And we came back and Bert had left. And I was like, what's that about?
So you didn't expect it?
I didn't expect it. I didn't read into it, you know, and I just thought, why? But I think at the time that Bert, it was tough for him because he'd been so successful, he'd been through a lot as well with Inori and, you know, winning promotion, the hype of that, and now becoming, you know, a relegation team. And that was a tough part, that we were drawn too many games.
The squad was ageing at that point as well. That group of players that I'd had for 4 or 5 years.
It was a wee bit transition. I think we signed Dave Linnigan.
Quite a few English boys came
Gavin
in.
Johnson. They weren't bad players. And Butts did really well in goals. But they were getting on a wee bit. Murray was moving on. Harry was getting older. I think George Shaw came in. Jerry was moving on.
I think
Jerry
left.
was injured. Evo, aye.
Martin Miller.
Dave Barnett came in. You know, him and Toddy, you know, when they were playing actually were good together. But, you know, the club were in transition. Big Scott McCulloch, myself, we were the only young boys there. John Fraser coming through. But that was it.
Was that quite tough at the time, seeing that change in the...
It was new to me. Because you're coming in there, then you become a big part of the squad. I was the future. Me and Scott, I think Scott got sold as well. He went to Dundee United and Coyley came in.
Yes, yeah.
So that was hard as well. Coyley was another older player coming to probably end his career. And it was just a tough time. When you're drawn, you can't get out the bit when you're down there. It was really, you know, it was new to me. So I think we struggled for the end of the season, and obviously
we went down, didn't
we?
See, at that point, East End Park was starting to change, obviously the construction of the new stands. What was it like playing at the old East End with the traditional, the 3 doors and the steps going down? And
well, that was my first impressions of it, the old dressing rooms, you know, the old boardroom. Paul DeMello in there, saying you're not getting any more money. Dick in Bert's office, you know, hilarious. Been in there a few times. Where the gym is, or where the shop is now, used to be a table tennis table there with the gym. You know, just it doesn't change. It does change, but you picture it of what it was before.
Yeah.
I remember wee Murray in the gym in a punch bag with his top half, showed his pecs. But the steps down there, it was, you know, iconic.
It was different, eh?
Aye, it was. And when you look back at tapes, I look back at some of them, the YouTube, the old games, and when you see them walking down the steps, you know, it's doesn't happen now.
Nah.
And the old stands, the biggest memory I've got of the old stands is, well, there's two actually, is we beat Hearts, I think, in the extra time one night. Murray scored.
Yeah, I remember. It was like a Tuesday night.
There was about 10,000 out there.
Aye, I mind that.
It was rammed. What an atmosphere. We went up to town that night. It was a great night. So you remember nights like that. Another one's Falconbridge's goal.
Yeah,
You know,
the 1-1 game.
Celtic come to town and think they're going to win the league. We scored with 4 minutes to go.
Yeah.
You know, and at the time my dad and my father-in-law, I remember them being in the stand behind the goal that we scored in. And they're all, it was our second last game of the season there. I think the last game, I don't know.
It was the last home game in front of the
last
terrace,
home
I
game.
think.
Aye. And it just, the moments, you know, are great. I like the old stadium, the distance behind the goal. And obviously it was time for change after that, eh?
Yeah. Unfortunately, Scottish football had to change. Good in some ways, eh? But
and you think the stands are old now, eh? But it was only 98 that they started getting done. Aye.
It's all changed. And then the next season, we go into the first division, obviously, we're promotion favourites. But there's early chat you're going to leave at that point, eh? So did you have other clubs kind of interested during the pre-season? And
there was a lot of hype at during that. I think I got married that year, went on my honeymoon, and there was a lot of contact with me, but nothing concrete. You know, and I think it was Bert and Dick. I remember it, and it was Dick. Bert was away. Dick pulled me and he says, "Look, if you just hang tight," he says, "I'm pretty sure Rangers will come back for you."
Wow.
And I said, I don't know if I'm interested in going back, you know, or I didn't think I'd believe myself it was actually that good to go back there, or, you know, the money they would sign. But I remember him saying, probably listening to him, what's he talking about? But maybe it was just one of Dick's stories that he said to me at the time to keep me.
Yeah.
And he says, "I want to offer you a new contract here. Can you extend it?" I says, at the time, I says, "No," because I wanted the club to get money for me leaving. And I felt, I was always these ones, if I waited 2 years, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I felt, because my stock was quite high, I was playing well.
You're still young as well, weren't you?
Aye, I think I was 22 or something when I left. Maybe 99, I was 22. And I said to him, if you can, you know, and somebody does come in, sell me. And I walked away, and I think by the Thursday, John Yorkson was calling me saying, "Charlotte was in for you."
Because you only played 3 games at the start of that season.
I did, aye. I played a cup game, I think it was Morton. I don't know if we lost in penalties or something. I think he came up Curbishley. And I was there to replace Danny Mills. So, you know, it was the right time to leave. I'd loved it. I think the club were in a wee bit transition then as well. New players were coming in, and obviously I didn't realise what was happening with Dick going and Calder coming in too.
Yeah.
I made the right choice for my career, you know, and obviously experience something different down south. But aye.
So what was it like? You go down to Charlton in August '99 for around 600,000. So what was that initial going down to England and training at a different club, different environment? What was that like?
It was weird because I hadn't actually agreed with what I was wanting in a salary. And I think it went on for a couple of days. And I still hadn't agreed, and he says, "Well, come down." And usually everyone's like, "Come down, you'll sign for nothing," type thing. But I went down to the airport. We flew into London City. I think me and Jim MacArthur at the time was my agent. And Curbishley was at the airport, picked me up. You know, picks me up in this big, massive 7 Series BMW. It was like a spaceship. I'm like, here we go. The manager of Charlotte was picking me up. You know, they'd just been in the Premier League, got relegated. I think that's when I was thinking, this club is massive.
Yeah.
Right? And he took me straight to the training ground, and I was like, no, straight to the Valley. And I looked at this place and I thought, wow, I just knew it was the right move. And I went away, did my medical and all that, and I'm still thinking to myself, I've no agreed terms here. So I think Jim was up in one of the boxes in the first stand, and he comes down and says, "That's all right, son, we've agreed it." Whatever. I was like, oh. At the time I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's do it. And I'd agreed terms, and, you know, I eventually signed, but I think I signed a 4-year. And because I started off so well with them, I think I'd scored within 5 games. First 3 games, I think they gave me man of the match. I was playing, I said that earlier, I was playing really, really well.
Yeah.
And he actually extended my contract. So I'd then signed I'd renegotiated or whatever, or added another year to it and signed a 5-year. At the time, you think 5 years.
Seemed unknown, at that time.
Aye. And it was it just felt the right move. It was hard because you're coming down there. I didn't realise, the first time I'd ever been in London, massive. I'd always been to the airports, but like, what? The boy who played with us that day stayed in Blackheath, Martin Pringle. I remember going to training, my first training session, and he says, you can come back to mine, Swedish player. And his wife made me, it was the best, I remember the pasta, it was the best pasta ever, right? And he says, right, just get on a train to here, because I had to get back to Bexley Heath. And when you're going from Blackheath to Bexley Heath, I had to go into London because it was on a different train line or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I'd went into London Bridge, and I think I jumped on the wrong train because I had no clue. Oh, I'll just jump on that train. I ended up in Charlton. I had to get out of Charlton and get a taxi to Bexley Heath. But I can remember calling the missus and I says, oh God, what am I doing? What am I doing?
So were you down there yourself?
Down there myself.
Family stayed up here?
I think for a week. And
Right.
then Lorraine came down and we were in the Marriott or something at Bexley Heath for about 2.5 months. It was great. Every night it was Dover Soul. It was brilliant.
Did you never get homesick? Did you cope okay staying away down there?
I did. See, when you're not playing in the team, see, playing in England, it's tough because you're Saturday, Tuesday. And we were in the Championship at the time, and you're 46 games.
Yeah.
And you could be, at that time, you could be up at Blackburn midweek, or a Saturday you're at Blackburn, then you're travelling back down and you get Portsmouth on the Tuesday. And you're constantly 7 hours in the bus. And the traffic was a nightmare. Mm-hmm. A nightmare. And we'd have our own kitchen and all that stuff, and we'd put our stuff in the kitchen. We'd get to the hotel late at night, and then you're game, and then you're travelling again. You didn't really see your family a lot. And I think that was a hard piece. You're just married. It was tough. We're looking for a new house. We eventually got one. You didn't have any help.
No.
And
because nowadays at a club like Charlton, they've probably got members of staff who would do all that for the
they'll
players.
have a relocation thing as well, so they'll do all that for you. But it was the unknown, and it was the manager said to me, move to where I stay, move to Chigwell, or he lived in Abridge, which was next to Grange Hill where that was filmed. And I went and had a look, and I says, what am I want to do, living next to the manager? Not a chance. That would go down well with the boys. But it was, first night I got lost. I'm in the hotel, but old guy used to pick us up in his Ford Granada every day and take me to training. It was only 10 minutes down the road and it was baking hot, I remember it. But we played Fulham first game, but I'm walking into a dressing room down there, and this was the difference. You're walking into a dressing room that had John Solacco, Mark Kinsella, Graham Stewart, Andy Hunt, Clive Mendonca, Richard Rufus, Carol Tyler, Chris Powell, and they just signed Dean Kiley as well, the goalie. He was just before me for over $1 million. And, you're trying to picture who all these guys are, and you'd seen them on TV. Graham Stewart obviously scoring the penalty to keep Everton up a couple of years before that. John Robinson, and it was just surreal. Surreal. You're on the training pitch and it was like, these guys have no clue who I am. I'm coming for this smaller club into the English Championship or English League One at the time, and you've got to prove yourself. And I felt there it was more like a Rangers experience, that when you passed the ball to Mark Kinsella, you ran, you got it. If you played the ball to Sean Newton, who was wide right in front of me, Sean Newton was electric, lightning quick, and just cut inside, he'd find you, and it was an easy transition. It was really easy, but I felt when you ran, you got the ball. This was great. I'm a runner. I'll get the ball every time. I can whip balls in for Mendonca or Andy Hunt or Pringle or whoever and finish. It was that easy, right? But I kicked off really well. The first game, I was actually on the bench against Fulham. The first game, you go to Craven Cottage, and Craven Cottage was the best pitch at that time I'd ever been. It was like a carpet. It was frightening. And you're away in this cottage in the corner.
That's still there,
It's still there. And I'm thinking, what on earth's going on here? We had the away end, and there must have been about 5,000 fans there in the away end, maybe more. And I'm thinking, this is different. It was rammed, and the wee boy Paul Pesciolito, he was playing, and he was magic. I think they beat us 2-1 or 1-0 that day, and we were fighting top of the league. And it was the time where, after the game, the away fans had to stay in. I think Kirbysley at the time, he sat us all down in the centre circle, and he never gave us a bollock, and he just spoke to us. I don't know why he did it. And I'm looking above my head, and there's a big massive Concorde going above me. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, here we go, you're in London now. Went to the players' lounge after the game, right? And this is when you realise you're in you know you're in the big time, but you're in amongst. It's different. Hugh Grant's next to you in the players' lounge. You know, and it's like, wow, this is just, you've arrived, and that was the start of it. And I thought, here we go. So the following week we played Bolton. Game prep was amazing during the week. Had a good week, and played Bolton, and we won 2-1 or 2-0. I think it was. I got man of the match. I think Bolton got 2 guys sent off. It was Andy Todd and the boy Mike Whitlow. Mike Whitlow, top man of tackle, and he got sent off for it. And then Andy Todd, who later signed for us, he got sent off that day as well for fighting with Graham Stewart. It was a huge learning curve, and I thought, this is amazing.
So you enjoyed it from early on? You didn't struggle at all? Not
at all. I hit it really well. I felt like up here I was playing really well pre-season. I was as fit as I could be. Going down there was an easy transition at the start. And I think I played about 30 games or something.
25 games I've got.
Including the Cup as well, eh?
Yeah.
And it was stupid. We played Coventry in the Cup. Was it around before the quarters? It was, aye. And it was a time Coventry had Cheapo, McAllister, Robbie Keane, all these guys, right? Big boy Carlton Palmer, he played that day as well. So they were Premier, we were obviously playing against them, and we were like 2-0 down, early doors. And we won the game 3-2, scored late on, Andy Hunt scored. And you're going away and think, Chris, I'm in the quarter-final of the FA Cup. Right? Charlton in the quarter-final of the FA Cup, and they actually played Bolton, but they got beat. So I came home, and I think I've told this story before, met my mates, went out in Dunfermline that night, and I was always one for I went to London, I travelled during the night. So drive up for Birmingham, out in the piss, a couple of days, whatever, with my mates, having a laugh, not seen them in ages, family, and then drove back down on the Monday night, because they gave me Monday off, trained on the Tuesday. I hadn't had any sleep, obviously, been drinking, last kick of the ball, popped my knee, and I'm saying, I've done something bad here. Eventually, you know, it was stretched ACL, did my ACL, out for 8 months. And I was like, wow, Cup quarter final, we're sitting top pretty of the league, you know, top of the league, going to win it. I think we won it with about 8 games to go that year. Man City were second, that's how good Charlton were. But the highs you've been down there, that was obviously the lows. Mm-hmm. And I'd still had 4 years left of my contract, eh? But the highs you've been there was, I think I scored the winner against Birmingham. My 5th game, I think it was. And we went top of the league. Great, bottom corner, good finish. I was like, what does it feel like to score a goal?
You scored a peach against Forest as well, it's
on
YouTube.
That was my second goal, aye. But that was like, I've just scored. Bizarre, you know. It was...
everything just clicked for you, the way it was all working.
They went top of the league, and it was just, I remember going out, we were out in London that, a great night, still the nights you remember, and it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And scored against Forest, top corner, 25 yards, the first goal in 2000, pardon me. But it was just a great club, good people, well run, and just a good squad of players to come into. You know,
I'm guessing after the injury issue, did you then struggle to get into the team? The club then went to the Premiership, didn't they?
I did.
You played a couple of games in the Premiership.
I did. I came back pre-season, and see when you've been out a long time, I think I'd played Southend or something. I think it was July. I went to Southend. My wife was pregnant. A month out for having the baby. There was a few things before that, so I had that in my mind. And I came back, played a couple of games, and I don't know if I'd hurt my ankle or whatever. And then they'd signed, I think Radisson Kishishev signed from Bulgaria. He was more attacking than me. I always thought I was a better defender than him. But the way Charlton played, you know, he came in, they played 3-5-2, changed formation, he played. And then, I don't know if he got injured, I kind of got back in a wee bit. Played a couple of games, played Ipswich, played Bradford. I played Bradford, then Ipswich. Mm-hmm. And was playing well. But, I don't want to get to this yet. And then the latter part, I think, as it went on, I think I'd got another one, a bad injury. I think I had a hernia, that was what I had. You try to push, trying to get back in the team, doing too much, overdoing it. I had a double hernia. And then he signed Luke Young. I think he signed Luke Young for $4.5 million. Luke Young went on to play for England.
Aye, it was class, aye.
You couldn't, see when you've been out for a couple of times down there injury wise, it's so hard to get back in, the level's so high. I keep saying it, you know, me going down there, there's so many me's going down there. You've got to be athletically gifted, you've got to be so physical. They're all athletes now. And even at a time, you know, the Arsenal team were coming through, they were massive, your Vieiras, all they boys. And the game is changing.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlton, they were going down that route as well. You know, I think Di Canio later signed too with them. I wasn't there at the time, but I found it tough. I really did. And I think that's where you come into your homesick.
Yeah.
You know, you're homesick and it becomes hard, it becomes an excuse. Nobody likes me, all that, and you become in a rut. Then you become a reserve group. You know, it was myself, John Solako, Kevin Lisby. You know, I'm sure the younger boys, your Koncheskis and Parkers and that, were probably in that. It was tough. It was tough. I got back, played a lot of reserve games during that period, travelled a lot with the first team. You know, there's the type of players you were. I used to share a room with Gavin Peacock.
Right, aye.
Gavin Peacock, I seen him at Newcastle and Chelsea with the hair. Gavin was bald now.
Aye.
And I was one for going out and playing cards at night with the players. I liked to, you know, play cards with them. And I was shiting myself. You know, Gavin, I'd come back and Gavin, it was freezing cold, remember, it's snowing outside. And Gavin, older pro, 34, 35. You know, I looked up to Gavin, learned a lot from him.
I'm sure he's a priest now.
He's in Vancouver, Edmonton area. He's up there, they're American, and he was in Edmonton. And Gavin I'd come back late on at night and the room would be absolutely freezing. And I was shiting myself to actually say to him, can I close the windows? So I'd lie there with all my clothes on, my big jacket, and I'd sleep at night, shivering away. Just because it was respect with Gavin Peacock, eh? It was just so hard to get back in. And I went on loan to Walsall in the end. Played 7 or 8 games down there.
Yeah.
It was Colin Lee and Dave Merrington, the coaches. Trained at Willis Hall, lived in a hotel for a month. I actually re-signed there. And I went to them and I said, look, this isn't right for me. I knew Jim Jeffries was sniffing about. And I said earlier, I probably came back to Scotland too early.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I regret coming back and playing for Kilmarnock. I didn't. But I was still really young. Kilmarnock would have still been there in 3 years or 4 years. And I was aware of that. But see, when you've been out of the football for a year and a half, being a bit part player, it's not what you're paid to do.
Yeah.
And although the salary was good down there, it wasn't me.
You want to play, don't you?
I wanted to play. And I remember calling Keith Peacock up. I said to him, Keith, he was assistant at the time of Mervyn Day, and I said, Keith, look, I'm not saying it Walsall. I know Kilmarnock want me. I said, is there any chance I can just go? He says, you're not getting paid up. I says, I didn't want paid up, I just want to leave. And at the time they let me go for free.
Right.
And you know, it was fair play to them. Fair play to them, but obviously I did my part as well by coming off the wage bill to release it for somebody else. But great club, a lot of good people there. I learned loads, and if I hadn't got an injury like anything, you know, you never ever know, eh? But
yeah.
I think the level in the end, and I maybe being a bit unfair on myself, at Premier League was probably a bit.
Do you not think you could have stepped up to that?
Maybe. But see any, and you see that and how they worked and how they did it, any flaws or any weakness you have, you know, the players they're 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
You're dealing with, I was 70 kilo. You're dealing with guys that are 95 kilo that are massive. I remember playing against Ian Dowie, he was huge. Absolute monster. You know, the ball's getting hung up back post, you've no chance. No chance. And that's part of their game plan. I will play it against this wee guy because we've got big boy here. No chance.
The thing is, though, you had a good mentality. You looked after yourself. You were focused. So that would have stood you in good stead, wouldn't it?
I think I maximised what I had. You know, I've no regrets on what I did throughout my career. You know, probably fell out with Cubs a few times down there. Probably maybe regret that. But you look back and these things happen. You know, you just want to play. It still happens to this day. But I had a good career.
Yeah.
When I look back.
Brilliant. So you come back up the road, you join Kilmarnock. What was it like working under Jim Jeffries?
Well, it was good because I knew that Hearts wanted us before. When I was at Dunfermline, I think they tried to get us before, and it was going back to like Dick and Bert. You know, the two of them are very similar in how they trained, what they wanted, their demands. You know, they'd lose it after a game, and you know, wee Billy when he talked to you for 5 days if you lost. But I really enjoyed playing for them. I did. Kilmarnock were a great club, good people, and I played in a position that I really enjoyed. I played sweeper for them a lot of the time. I think I went on to play 70 games or something for them.
You were made captain as well, weren't you?
I was. I think Steve Fulton was out, and they gave me captaincy when he was out. But it was just, you could name that team.
Andy McLaren
steady.
there at that point.
Andy ended up leaving. There used to be a car that went through. It was me, Gary McSwegan, Chris Innes, Craig Dargle. Then we picked Quitongo up, Andy McLaren, and we had Ali Mitchell coming for leaving.
Right.
So there was 7 or 8 years when I first came. And by the end, that was one of the reasons why I left. It was only me.
Right.
I think Dargo and all these boys and Ali Mitchell would obviously, I think he went to East Fife or whatever he went to. But the club was a wee bit in transition too, but just good. I'd loved that position, you know, and I scored a few goals for them as well.
I remember you scoring against Dunfermline. You scored a peach against Dunfermline at Rugby Park.
It was a cross. I scored a good goal out here. There's a wee one too, and I put it in the top corner. I remember we were on by Nipper. I says, "Get it up, you Nipper!" And he was killing himself laughing. But you know, some good times.
Brilliant. And then 2004, you get the opportunity to come back here. So how did that all kind of?
I was away. That was the thing. I was away with Scotland up in Dundee, and we'd played Turkey, and I was Graham Shields that week.
Aye, good old Betty.
And I'd received a text or something alluding me that Jimmy Calderwood liked us at Dunfermline. At the time, I was like, this travel's killing me. You know, I'm 3.5 hours a day in the car. I'm myself, 30,000 miles a year. Is this what I want to do for the next 2.5 years? And I eventually spoke to him, and I think within the week I was signed. It was the right thing to do. It's always hard coming back to a club though, and I felt that the expectation levels are higher. I think under Calderwood everything was rosy.
Mm-hmm. The film was flying at that point, eh?
Flying, top 4, top 5 team, and during the time it was Rangers, Celtic, Hearts, Kilmarnock, Dunfermline.
Yeah.
That were the top 5 during that period, and they had a really good group. I know Barry Nick for my Rangers days, Big Scott, obviously Nipper was still there, and just a really good group. And I know money was different and it brought success to the club during that period, but just the way they played football was exciting.
Yeah.
I wanted to be part of that, and I felt I could add. I think I was 27 when I came back, maybe a wee bit older. And I think it was the first game I came in. We played Motherwell. Wee Baz came off, injured, and I came on. I think it was like 25-30 minutes in. I think we ended up winning the game 3-0 at a canter or 2-0. It was easy.
Yeah.
I thought, I love this. Mm-hmm. Love it. You were on the ball all the time. It was great. Everybody was showing for you. And everybody
it was high intensity, wasn't it? Even training.
But see, his demands in training was way over and above anybody else I've ever played under. A lot of managers may be annoyed that I've said that, but he was on you. He was on you. And everybody that's played under Jimmy Calder would probably say that.
Yeah.
There was a standard. And see, if you were the one getting the ball away, you got ridiculed. And you felt, shit, so bad. You felt the one that was letting everybody down. And it made you want to get better. You know, and that's where you've seen players in the periphery. Jimmy Calder would have 8 or 9 players who would play every single week, and 2 or 3 guys would get dropped, 2 or 3 guys would come in. And that's why competition was so fierce. You had your Dempseys, your Noel Hunt, your Davy Grondins, boys like that who were just desperate to play. You know, and it was, what an experience coming into that group. And if he wasn't there, Jimmy Nick would take it. Jimmy Nick's, as an assistant manager, he was fantastic. Love him as assistant manager. It was just fun, real good fun as well. But when it was fun, there was always a standard to it, and the players knew that. There was a line you could cross, you could never cross. Just a good group, and it was one of the groups that you go in the morning, you didn't want to come back to the house. You're getting back at 5:30 at night. Your wife's saying, "Where are you about?" "Oh, I've just been training." "Are you sure?" But you played table tennis, you'd play pool, whatever, and it was just a really good group.
Brilliant.
Great group of boys.
I remember back then as well, like after the games, it was quite important for the players to bring their families into the players' lounge and everyone to have a beer, and it was a real togetherness, eh?
Aye. There was,
quite
aye.
important at that time.
And I think, obviously now, during the years, the internet has got a big thing to do with that, .net as well. You can't go anywhere without picking your nose during that period. And it's folk are saying, you're on whatever, and you're doing this and doing that. Geez, peace.
Yeah.
And that changed it a lot, and the players became a wee bit more distant with the fans. Now, as you see what James has done a great job of galvanising the players with the fans, connecting them, especially Kane last season walking off against Queen South. It was unbelievable. I've not seen that in years, from your Hamish French days, from the Calderwood era, and it was just really good. But it helps when you're winning as well, eh? Winning brings that. But that was good times too. But it was hard to see when you come back. Calderwood leaves, Davy Hay comes in,
and there was all the financial troubles starting to.
It was. I think it was 2 weeks after I came in. They were all saying the wage cuts and whatever, and it was a hard one to take. It was tough, but you accept it.
The players stuck together. We get to the cup final that first season.
They did. Aye, that was a hard one because I think we'd went. Actually, I was cup tied. Played against Raith Rovers for Kilmarnock. Stupidly, with a sore knee. Wasn't going, but I did. Never realised the run would be on, and I think I went through that game with Big Scott and Nipper. They had a great day. Went to, I think, La Fiorentina. Two of them were pissed. Watching the cup final. What a day that was.
We could have won that one as well. It was so close.
The penalty, Skerler's goal, the penalty or whatever. But aye.
What about the plastic pitch at this point? What was your thoughts?
I liked
on that? Did you?
I liked it. Just that Dunfermline had an advantage with the plastic pitch. We trained it all the time. It was good for us because we were moving the ball quickly, and we just got on with it. It was fine.
So you didn't find that issues were like potential injuries?
Not then.
Right.
But probably that's why I had a fusion in my back.
Right.
I had 2 ups in my back laterally, and that's maybe from there.
From the hard surface.
I think I had a couple of knee ups after that as well. But you just get on with it. That's part and parcel of being a football player. You do get injured, you take it, and if you get a bad one, you hate to. You move on. That's just being a footballer, eh?
Yeah. And what you said, Calderwood leaves. What was your memories around about that time? Did the players know he was going to go after the cup final?
After the cup final, I had an idea. There was a few things, within that. I remember them. It was just different. It was a weird feeling, being in the dressing rooms after it. And he obviously knew. It was really disappointing because I felt at the time he was a really good manager. He was going to be good for me. And I think a lot of the players and how we struggled under Davy Hay when he left was that a lot of players were still living in the past of this is what happened under Jimmy, the 2 Jimmies. This is what we did. Move on.
It wouldn't matter who came in at that point. It was going to be an impossible job. Impossible because it was so hard to replicate. Plus the financial burden of no win bonuses, stuff like that during that period was hard. It was hard for a player to bring players in. And Davy Hay was a lovely guy. He had Heggie and he had Kirky as assistants, good assistants. But it's just hard when you didn't go off to a good start. The pressure's on. I think it went on for the whole season. And then Leash obviously comes at the end and saves the club. Or so he says. Again, it was some end to the season, though.
Some end to the season. I was out injured. I think I'd done my knee against Livingston. And obviously Davy Hay went on the Monday after that. And I think it was wee Mace that scores up at Tannadice that day. And
what a day.
We beat Dundee, was it 6-0 or something out there?
Aye, 5-0 I think.
Aye.
See, at the start of that season, we got a wee taste of Europe. A wee 5 minutes in Iceland. What was that experience like?
Iceland was tough. It was a bit bizarre because it was 85 degrees. It was baking hot. And we had to walk through the hotel to the game because the hotel was right next to the stadium.
The preparation was really poor, eh?
Aye, I think just being on the plane for so long beforehand, I don't know what had happened. It was just, the prep wasn't right. But the game, I think we not score late.
Aye, we were 2-0 down.
Aye.
And we drew 2-2.
I remember Big Brew, he absolutely hammered me. He hammered me during the game. And when he gets on at you, because he's a lovely big guy, just give me that fucking ball, get to my feet, whatever. And I think I put the cross in for his goal.
Did he get the first one in Skerla, I think?
I don't know who it was in it. It was a heater or someone in it. I was like, I was gearing a bit tight. Is that what you want? Is that what you want? And we came back, and the wee guy, the best player was a wide left that day, the boy that went to Spurs.
Aye.
Really good.
Alfredson?
Aye. And he gave me a really hard time over there. But we played at St John's and I thought we were in total control of the game that night. And I don't know what happened. 1-0 up, was it?
We were 1-0, I think Dempsey maybe scored.
Aye.
And the last 5 minutes was just chaotic.
Nuts. And we were in total control of that game, and I couldn't believe it, we lost it in the end. I remember Davy Hay obviously coming round to the dressing room at the end of the game, and it was just, it's hard because from a supporter's point of view, you're put Europe to the minnows, it's tough. So they were up against it for the start, and obviously the pressure was on us. It's always hard, and always, I wouldn't say that to players coming back, but it's tough coming back to a club for a second time. The expectations do become high, and when you're under pressure, that's part of your job, I get it, but...
And then there's cuts going on, the confidence is low, the manager's struggling.
That's right.
It's not going the right way, is it?
But it was a strong group that they had, and I think that's what got them through it in the end.
Yeah, and then Jim comes in for a wee stint, and then Stephen Kenny comes in. What was it like working under Stephen Kenny? That was kind of all change as well, wasn't it? He was a young manager. It was different. It was hard for Stephen because he had so many experienced players during that period. And he had a lot of boys that were petering out towards the end of their career. I'd maybe put myself in that bracket as well. Big Scott Thompson was there, Big Toddy was there. And he had players that he'd signed for Ireland and maybe weren't good enough to wear a Dunfermline jersey. So he had that pressure as well, and I think his ideas were right. Decky was assistant. It was fine. But it's results driven as well, eh? I think we beat Dundee United out there, and he was watching that game. We'd won, and I think he took 10 games before he got his first win. Yeah. But I've still, I've spoke to him 3 or 4 times since he's left the club. During my time in America, we were asking for players, and I've spoke to him. So there's no hard feelings with myself and Stephen Kenny. Yeah. He was good to me. I was captain under him, and he was honest with us.
We are Flow Digital Pharmacy, and we are proud to sponsor the Walking Down the Halbeath Road podcast. Our easy-to-use app is a convenient way to access your NHS prescription medication, and our team of trained pharmacists are helping thousands of people to access the support and medication they need. If you're registered with a GP who's based in England, you can use the Flow app to securely and conveniently send them NHS medication requests and arrange delivery to a location of your choice at a time that suits you. This means you can avoid the hassle of contacting your GP and making unnecessary round trips to eventually collect your prescription. Find out more at weareflow, spelled PHLO, that's weareflow.com.
And during that time, Leash as well, 2 cup finals again.
But Nipper was the captain for the
League Cup
final, and I think I was captain for
tough, wasn't it? That was just
played 4-5-1 that day. I think wee Hunty got injured, falling off his bed in St Andrews Bay.
Yeah.
What? What was he up to?
Did you not sign the boy Andy Campbell just weeks before it? He got his debut, he was miles off it.
He played, didn't he? And that was a hard game. Roy Keane played that day, I remember it. For Celtic, but Griggs and McGregor played.
Aye.
It was a wee thing with Aaron LeBon for the first goal, eh? But that was tough, you were always up against it. But obviously, being captain for the 2007 Cup final was, a great occasion.
And that was a classic Hampden day in the sun, eh? Full Hampden.
82nd minute goal for Matthias Doumbé.
Yeah. How do you look back on that cup final in particular? Is that the one that you think?
I think we had an opportunity then. Celtic were on their knees. Then they scraped by, but good teams always do, right? They always find a way. I was playing against McGeady, actually played them quite well that day. But we more than matched them. But obviously the better players shone through in the end, eh?
And during that time, we had players like Adam Hamill on loan and Jim O'Brien. They were quite good young players, exciting young players, eh?
Jim never played, because he was cup tie. He couldn't play against his team, but I loved playing with them. Adam, brilliant. What a talent he was. He's probably one of the most exciting players I've seen playing at East End Park with Adam. But Jim was a worker. He was a wee bit like Alan Moore that way, the delivery. There was no fuss with Jim. You could tell him, you had him on remote control. He was wanting to learn, a young boy coming from Celtic. I was an experienced player at the time, I was good for him. But Jim went on to have a great career.
He did, played down south for years, didn't he?
Good player. And it was hard because we tried to get him to play and Celtic just never let him, eh? He's not going to play and score the winner against Celtic.
Yeah, the following season, again, back to the first division, we got relegated again under Stephen Kenny. It was tough again, eh? The start of that season was really poor.
I think the start of that season, you go on as favourites. First game was Hamilton away and we lost something like 2 or 3-0, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was tough. The Astro was there, it was hard, it was baking hot, I remember it was sticky. I thought I had 2 left feet that day, I was all over the place. All over the place. And I didn't think we played well as a group. And it was just reality. See, when you come for the Premier League and you drop down, you didn't realise how hard it is.
Yeah.
And that's no excuse. It is, it's so tough. As you see, with teams that have fell down in the past. Dundee United had 3 or 4 years down here, albeit Hearts had the money, they came back up.
Yeah.
And there's Dundee obviously popped back up again, but it's so tough.
I remember earlier that season we went away to Stirling Albion and got beat, and then we had a game here against, was it Morton or Hamilton? They cuffed us 5-6-0.
It was Offyong.
Aye.
I think our fans were clapping Hamilton off that.
Everything he was hitting was going in.
It was humiliating. But Hamilton, people forget Hamilton's team that year. They had Brian Easton, they had the 2 MacArthurs, they had Offyong, MacArthur, Offyong. They had the boy Gilhaney wide left who went to Dundee.
Yeah.
Good side.
Yeah.
Good honest side. That young, energy coming through that was hard to play against. As we're seeing now with the younger crop coming through here, it's exciting. And Hamilton had that, and it showed that with players going away. And they had the big boy Monroe, I think he was a centre back or whoever. They had boys that scared you or scared some. They'd kick the shit out you when you played against them. It was a tough group to play against.
Yeah.
And well deserved to win the league that year.
I think Stephen Kenny then leaves just after that, doesn't he? Jim McIntyre comes in.
I
He was your
remember it.
teammate.
Aye.
How did that all kind of work at the time?
I think we were up here, we were in a meeting, and I think Stephen had got a chap at the door, and it was the chairman, and I think he'd, we were going over a team meeting, and I think he'd came back in and said, look, I've just been fired.
Wow.
And Declan obviously as well, and then I think Jim got called out, a few of the older, I think Craw was the older ones, and Jim came in and said, look, I'm manager for the time being, he's all on my side. It was tough, because I remember Stephen Kenny going around all the boys and shaking their hand. It was like, it was a shame. It was a shame, but it's all about results, right? At the end of the day, I think a lot of fans liked Stephen Kenny. They liked his way.
Just didn't work.
Results. At the end of the day, cost him his job, and whether it's the player's fault or whether it's the manager's fault, that's just part of football, as we've saw over the last 2 or 3 years here. If you're not getting results, you're out the door, simple.
It's been difficult. And then Jim obviously comes in, player manager for your last couple of years at the club. How did you find working under Jim McIntyre?
I liked it, because Macca was a bit like myself, good attitude, worked hard, had standards. He was easy to work under. We had a good group. He realised, because he'd been part of that, what he never liked about it. And as he went on here, he became very successful.
I was playing good football.
He did. And he had, Callum Woods was coming through behind myself. And he had Os McCann as well, who was eventually captain, who came on and had a really good time. Maybe, was he as good with that group then as he was? Probably no, And I think the club were in transition then. Scott then went to Australia. I don't think I played with Macca for a year and a half. I did actually. I did, because I went pre-season with him to Austria. And I think at the time, you get to a point in your career where you think, I need to move, I need to go on, I need to do something different. And it was an easy one for me, because my dad had just died. My dad passed in March. And I found out in August. We played St Johnstone and beat them 3-0. And it was that weekend that actually my dad had lung cancer. And I think it was 6-7 months, so you're dealing with that. And I think at that period, I always thought I was settled. I always thought, I had a couple of years left of my contract. Don't know where it'll lead to get involved in coaching. And that was never my aim. So, my dad died in the March. And Big Scott had went to Australia with Fergie. And one of the guys that used to play here, Richard Huxford.
Oh, yeah.
He was a fitness coach out in America at this team. And Paul Ritchie, former Hearts player, was out there. And he called me up and said, do you fancy a move to America? And I'm not sure. And the more I thought about it, the more I felt it was right for my kids. Just to, get away.
Just quality of life, eh?
Aye. And I thought, well, what else am I going to do at Dunfermline? You're kind of on the firing line a wee bit. and the expectation levels become a little bit higher. And I was at that stage, I think I was 32, 33. I thought, you know what, your time's up. Your time's up. Move on, save the salary, let's go. And I'd said to Mac, I said, look, I'm going to leave at the end of the season. I think I got injured, did my knee before the cup semi-final against Falkirk. I think it was Ross County I played my last game against. And I moved on. And it was the right choice. The right choice. Because Dunfermline, you know, I'd have probably kept Callum Woods back a wee bit. Callum Woods was breathing down my neck. Not that I felt any pressure by that, not at all, because he could play left back, right back, centre back, whatever. But I'd had enough.
Time for change.
And I think my dad, with him dying, it kind of expedited it a wee bit.
Yeah. What was it like for the family? Obviously uprooting
Huge.
to America.
Me and Lorraine had went out there end of May, or I think middle of May. This season was still going. I asked him to go away, and I'd went away for 4 days out there, and I thought, wow. Desperate Housewives was just on at that time.
Right.
Everything was like that. Beautiful area, massive houses, just everything was perfect. No weeds, nothing. It was just like, everything was like just roasting hot, humid. I was like, this is Florida. And it was just different. I was kind of a deer in headlights a wee bit. No, sorry, I was like a wee boy in a sweetie shop. I was like, whoa, here we go. So I'd agreed out there, and I think it took a month to sort out. And then I'd said at the time to Mac, I said, I'm away. It's the right call. And going out there, I think it was middle of July, I'd eventually got out. And that was it.
What was it like playing over there? What was the standard like?
The standard was different. Because it's so hot, the game changes. You know, it's all about possession. Positionally it's different. Players they're physical over there, but some of the technical players are really good. I always felt if somebody got by me, they'd kick out the park. Right? Or they'd go to cross it and go into goalie's hands. There wasn't really a lot of quality during that time. And it was more about the standard 11, you know, going out there, the experience for my kids, putting them in a learning American schooling system, you know, meeting new friends, all that stuff.
How did the kids adjust to that?
Easy.
Easy, aye.
Easy. They were talking American accent within 6 months. It was nuts. The only way they could understand you. You know, the young one, you know, going into kindergarten, as they call it there, and, you know, carpools and all that stuff. But it was different. And it was enjoyable, you know. And we said we'd be there 2 years. I remember telling my wife, this team wants me, and we're going to be there 2 year. 2 year visa. Ended up being 10 year. Green card holder. So, you know, I think I was 6 months out of becoming a citizen if we wanted to as a family. Or, you know, and having the passport.
How did you then move into coaching when you were out there? That kind of just developed naturally?
It's interesting, American leagues, right? Because the season finishes in October at that time, in November, and then it'll start up in mid-February. So as soon as the season finishes, your contract stops.
So you're not
wages stop. You don't get paid for 3 months. So I always thought Americans are all tight. All the players, you go out and you'd have a meal, there'd be 16 of you around the table. Oh, can I have separate checks, please? I'm like, what? Are you serious? Oh, there's $20 or whatever it is. But no, they save all their money because they know what's coming. So it was at a time, and there was 2 clubs there, 2 or 3 clubs that have like thousands of kids. And the club I eventually went to had about 16,000 kids. So you get paid for coaching Monday through Friday. And you're out 4 nights a week coaching. So the more teams you got, the more money you got. And I was never really wanting to be a coach. I wasn't interested. I always found it hard standing up and talking to whatever. And it was, you know, or getting the group to listen. I thought, this is a bit daunting. You know, I seen Mac when he first came in, his mouth was trembling. I thought, oh, don't want to say that. And I don't know. It's just, no, I'm not going to do that. I just want to see my career out, see what happens. And then when I got into it, I thought, this is great. I was taking under 12 teams, and then I went on to 14s, then when academy set up, and it grew for there. Loved it. Then you're travelling all over America with it, and you get caught up. So you're travelling with academy 1 week, you're travelling with the first team the next week, you're travelling whatever. And I did my back. I was saying earlier, I think it was in Minnesota, and I got cleaned out in a tackle, really bad one. I had a back up before that, and my back popped. I think I waited a year for, you know, as it happens there, when you get injured, you go on insurance, the club didn't pay your salary, the insurance company pay your salary. So I'm kind of drifting on a wee bit for when you stop getting paid. But I think and that's what got me into coaching as well, because I was injured. I needed another salary, or
Yeah.
I wanted another salary. The insurance company was what they were paying me in comparison to what I was getting paid from my club. It was a lot less, so I had to subsidise it. Absolutely loved it. And it was just the making of me. I went and did my American licences, and I think I had my B licence here, and I came back and finished my A.
Did you find it easy enough coaching kids? Obviously, you're used to an adult coaching environment.
It's
a
hard.
Playing environment.
It's really hard. See when you stop playing, and you expect them to do it when you stop playing, and it frustrates you. And that's where you see a lot of former players that are on the sidelines and they're going nuts. I used to go away to tournaments and lose my voice coaching U12 and U13 kids.
Yeah.
I'd come back and worry about, what are you playing at? I couldn't talk. You'd be shouting all the time inside, and I was like, what? And that's where you realise, what are you doing it for? Are you doing it for the kids or doing it for yourself? And I think as a player, because you're used to winning or something in the line that you have to win, you expect your group to win. And I found that so hard at the start that I look back at some of the stuff and some of the sessions and you think, what on earth was I doing? But the group I had learned.
Yeah.
They were learning. But were they learning the technical stuff they should have, or was it more tactics at 12 and 13-year-old? What am I doing coaching kids tactics at 12 and 13-year-old? It's not technical ability, you should be coaching them technical drills. So, huge learning curve for me, huge. And then you go to an academy setup where the footballs, you're playing against your FC Dallases and, your Vancouvers, your Seattles, all your MLS teams. And just, you'd go to San Diego, you'd play in a big tournament, you go down to Florida playing the tournaments, and it was, you're getting filmed, you're getting watched, people are assessing you, there's folk writing down what your body language is like in the sidelines, how you represent the club, all this stuff, and you just change, and although I'm quite hard with a lot of the players I have and coach, I think you've got to be, because
Is the reason for that just keeping standards high?
I think, see when they go into a first team environment as well, the standards with James is really high. If I'm not, getting them prepared for that, he's like, what on earth's going on?
Yeah.
So you know that you're bad to them, but you've got to tell them the right for the wrongs, and you've got to get after them. But the majority of players, I would imagine here, they all love playing for us. They enjoy it. The training's great, but that's all down to what I learned in America. Just how they build. I'm all about build up, and whatever, and playing through the back and through the lines, and you hear this all the time. I'm not born in football, whatever. It's like I'm applying for a job, but just the way you teach them and how they take it on board, and it's different from what they've been used to. I found that straight away when I came into the reserves here with Cam McGill, Callum Smith, Stuart Morrison, Matty Todd, Paul Allen.
Yeah.
They wanted to learn. It was a good group, and some of the stuff that I look back on, some of the play was excellent. They hadn't been used to that, and that's no disrespect to you before. It was just a different,
different approach, different style.
And I would never have known that if I'd went to America, and how you press and how you do it with 3, how you do it with 6, how your whole team press, how you high press, whatever. And you could only press for 30 seconds in America, because after that you were done.
Just with the
heat. Aye.
So did you take anything from coaches you worked with?
I did. I was really fortunate over there, because the head coach was Colin Clark, who used Northern Ireland centre forward, played in the '86 World Cup with them. He came in, and Martin Rennie was the first coach who later came back to Falkirk.
Yeah, he was at Falkirk for a while.
And I think Martin was just learning the game as well. He was very clued up in his A licences, whatever. And Martin had a lot of money at that club, and he could sign all the best players, so it was an easier job for him. But Colin Clark came in when Martin left, when he went to Vancouver. Colin was an old school type coach, but some of the stuff Colin taught me, and some of the phrases I use, was through him. And just see, when you're coaching youth, you realise who the good coaches are when you're coaching youth. You realise who the ballers and shouters are, and they do it for themselves, and it's all about winning, and it's all about them putting a badge on their top and saying, I won this cup, and who cares, I'm not interested. But then it's, how many boys at that are you putting into the MLS or top colleges? That's what it came down to. And it was more about coaching the individual as well. How do I make Mikey better? How can I work on Mikey? He's really good in there, but how do I make him excellent in there? Right? He's not so good with his right foot playing crossfield passes, but what do you do? And it was me understanding the player more. I was like, wow.
You'd never seen it from that approach before?
Nah, it was just, America's ahead. It's like England, they're ahead. all their data, all their technology, their training surfaces, the infrastructure's huge. The video, your analysts, you'd go to a game and it'd be on your table 10 minutes after a game. It was nuts. That's young boys. And just the way and how they spoke to them and how they engaged with them, it was different. Yes, they had the facilities and the resources there, and I get it, but you realise who the really, really good coaches are. So I took a lot out of that learning. There's a wee English guy, Paul Foster. It was he's head of it at North Carolina FC, and just his way, never raised his voice. Not in that training environment, in the dressing room maybe, right? Probably has to at times, but just his way and how he did his drills, a lot of smaller sided stuff that he got the most and maximised out of it. There's another coach, David Nahas, who's now the head coach of UNC Women's. Just fantastic coach, demands, just really, just got after his boys. I had a good academy director in John Bradford there too, who's now the head coach in North Carolina FC, still the academy director, but just, you learn something good for everybody, the good ones.
Yeah.
We had another coach in there, Dwan Bader, just some of his passing exercises and how he went about it and how he explained it and how he just...
Are you the type of guy that would stand on the sideline and watch drills and absorb information constantly?
We went to Brazil, and I think we went down and watched Fluminense train one time, and there was like 3 or 4 things in that session I took out, and I still do it. Some of the academy coaches do it. I kill myself laughing and say, that's my Brazilian job. And it was just a different way of learning.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. That's why I like going on licenses. I like going away. I like seeing things and how they do it, and good and bad, right?
Yeah.
How people talk, and I always say that to the players. They'll think those things you'll learn from other coaches, good and bad. You take it on board. That's a good thing. That's a bad thing. I didn't like that. I'll not do that. But I was really fortunate when I went out there, and it was the making of me. As a coach, there was so much help. It was just a good place for me at the time. It was tough in the family because I was travelling a lot. You're living in a plane every week. It was just something like jumping on a bus there, I come off to the airport again, any bother, I'll see you Sunday night type thing. Or you're away for a week. It was hard, really hard for Lorraine because the 3 kids were still quite young.
Sorry, what would you say makes a good coach?
I think understanding the player. You have to, and I know it's hard at times when players are struggling, they're playing poorly, their confidence is gone. That's the hardest part of your job. But it's trying to, I'll take Sam Young for example, and I'll look at Sam when Sam played up at 18s a few years ago. I would look at things in his game. I'd go along with Wits and watch the games, and I'd think, why Sam's playing up? Why? Is it right for him? He's always used to playing up. What would it be like at his level? And there was a lot of things in the game I think, wow, I'd pull him and say, what are you doing that for? The ball's on the other side, your body shape's closed, why are you not seeing blindsided runs? Open yourself up. You're forgetting he's a 15-year-old kid.
Yeah.
But if he's playing up, right? And then then he would offer him he played with me 18s, or he would offer him a full-time contract to come in. And Sam would actually say to you, well, why you want me to do this and why you want me to do that and such, and you'd have that conversation with him. So I think the trust piece, and Sam really struggled at the start when he first came in. Wee honeymoon period, then he dips. And he found it really tough. He'd go out and play with 18s. I think there was 3 or 4 games there where I was like, oh my God. I was hard on Sam, really hard on him. But when Sam looks back in his career and how his season went, he'll look back to that. We stood by Sam. We explained to him, we showed him. And we were up at Ross County last year and he was hitting diagonals 70 yards. So we worked on you during the week, that's what we worked on you last week. And some of the stuff he was doing, I was like, it's coming. Yeah,
and he'll see that, so his confidence goes up.
Completely. And then the trust piece from player to coach, you can see it grow, But there was a lot. That was a good group last year, the 18s, a really good group. So that's probably the most pleasing part of being a coach is seeing it, what you've been working on during the week, how much a player trusts you. You can see the ones that are not too sure, does he like me or does he not like me? That's the hard part as well, because you're never ever going to please everybody. You're not there to make everybody happy. You're there to get boys in the first team now.
Which is happening.
It is.
We'll touch on.
It is.
So you spent 10 years in America, you didn't get the opportunity to come back again. So how does that all kind of...
I think it was Ross. Ross called us up, and I think Alan had just been let go, and he said, you wanting to... I think he touched base on beforehand, and you know, there was a wee bit, I'm maybe thinking about coming back and whatever, and he'd asked me my background, and I said I'm involved in the youth. I'm not really interested in first team, to be honest. I really like the youth to pro pathway, and he said, look, there's an opportunity. He actually never told me who was getting the job. He said, look, I want to bring in the reserve coach. I was like, oh, Stevie. And then he eventually said, look, Stevie's going to be the manager, type thing. And I had to be respectful, because I think it was maybe 4 or 5 hours after Alan had just left. So I says, when do you need me back? He says, tomorrow. And I'm thinking this was like Wednesday afternoon or whatever it was. And I'm thinking Thursday morning. All right, they played Dundee United Saturday. And we need you in with Stevie. And I'm thinking, well, you're not bringing an assistant. I think they'll try to get somebody else at that time. It never worked. And I'd actually said to Lorraine, I think Lorraine was standing at the door with her suitcases already packed. Let's go. And she says, you're not going to ask him what salary? I didn't even ask Ross, what's his salary? Yeah. And I actually called him back and she says, what sort of salary? And it didn't really matter, because I just said, you know what, let's get back. Lorraine, she was always saying, I think her oldest Aaron, he just finished high school. He took a year out. And if we'd stayed there then, he'd have lived in America for the rest of his life, because when you go to uni there, you're done. And that was our fear, you know, that the kids were going to stay there, we're going to move back here. It was a transatlantic mother, father, daughter, son relationship, and the other two were just behind them pretty quickly. So, cut a long story short, I went to the club, asked them, a little bit annoyed, but let me go because I realised it was an opportunity. So, flew back that night. Came in the next morning, was late, flight was delayed, all that stuff. I walk in with my American gear on, you know, 10 years out of Britain with my baggy trousers on and everything. I walk in, they look at me like, what on earth are you doing? But, you know, Americans didn't bother about gear, but I just like froze for 10 years, still wearing G-Star. And walk in, I had no clue who anybody was. I was looking on the plane and watching the videos of, you know, the team against Falkirk and whatever, and I was like, Tom Beardley and Joe Thompson. Who are these? James Vincent. How did James Vincent's the guy when you hear Tom Beardley's the taller guy, and Joe Thompson's you know, whatever. And I was like, it was so hard, and obviously jet lag was tough as well. But I came in, you know, I think I assisted Stevie for 3 or 4 games before Callum came in, so it was kind of a dual role, reserves and joining the first team. Loved it. Never ever wanted, you know, that role of being a first team guy. I wanted to experience this, but Stevie, I remember coming over to me and he says, right, there's your group there. And he says, pick the best player. I remember him saying to me, who do you think the best player is? So I watched him. And I looked around and I had no clue who Matty Todd was. I know who Callum Smith was, no Lewis McCann. And I goes him. And it was Paul Brown, right? And he was a part-time player coming twice a week. And I loved that kid, a wee dog. He'd like run about the pitch, he'd kick folk when the ball, play it simple, get it back, but full of energy, bursting about all over the place. Loved him. He actually played the other night for Crossgates against me. We'll touch on that later as well with us. And obviously he was the one that caught my eye. But as it went on, you've seen the talent in McCann and Paul Allen and Matty Todd and these boys, and it was good to see that. But it was just first impressions, you know, a real good first impression of the kid, and I think that stuck with me throughout the years, because we eventually offered him, I think in January we'd offered him a contract through how well he did, and I made him captain of the reserve group when Stuart Morrison moved on, or moved into the first team. So it was good because I had my own group. There was maybe 6 players one day, 10 players the other, 14 players the next. We were training at the side with the first team players, and it was just Stevie would ask for players, they would come in and out. Good structure, really good structure.
Big change from your life in America, though, eh?
It was, aye.
Was it hard to readjust?
It was, aye. But you're back in, you're full time with a club, you're in the mornings, you're whatever, you're no out every hour of the day. I mean, you're out in the morning in America, you're back late at night. Never seen Lorraine, you know, it was tough. So, aye, we had our own group of players, and it was great having your own budget with that reserve group. And you seen the talent that was coming through. A few of them had already played, I think, against Inverness at the start of the season. Alan had played a really young group. As they kept on reminding me, we played against Inverness and we beat them. I was like, all right, okay. But you forget how immature they are, how naive they are. You've got to try and nurture them the right way. And that's probably, it's not the frustrating piece, but see when you see like McCann now, McCann did that week in, week out for the reserve group when he was 17, 18. And when they go into the first team, it's like Matty Todd, although Matty Todd never played a lot for me because Stevie kept him in the squad a lot with the first team. You see it, and you're just hoping it comes out when they play in the first team. And now the fans are really seeing Matty Todd last season, albeit Matty Todd's playing centre mid. You know, I mean, let's put him in there, and he scored against Morton that day from centre mid. He played in there with Paul Allen, and we had the confidence to put him in because we know what he can do. And that's, you're just, can you do it consistently? Can you keep doing it? And that's where you're sitting in the standings, an academy, you know, director or whatever my head of professional, my title. You're looking down and think, God, I seen this years ago with Matty Todd. I just want it, and you're so pleased. Same with McCann now. I'm absolutely delighted.
This whole group of young players who are bursting through there now don't seem to be shy or nervous going into a first team environment, do they? Not now. You've had to work on that. They've had to work on that a lot. You know, they've had their ups and downs. You know, it's been hard for them at times because the expectancy of doing really well in reserve football and what they think their standards are and how hard they found out there, and now they're now shown that how good they can be, and it's exciting because they're now assets to the club. Yeah. You know, and it's not just them playing reserve fit, but it's what's happened before that as well. People forget that. You know, what happens at 12 and 13s, 14s? Their coaches are Dougie Coulson, their Grant Petries, you know, that are, and Hamish. Massive part of the development. Massive part. You know, and you see that now with, you know, your Andrews, your Sam Youngs, your Taylors. It's not because they played a year with Greg Shields. It's what's happened before that. And it's James having the belief in them and listening, you know, that the guys are good enough. Yeah. And him believing in them, seeing them day to day, and, you know, we can write all the KPIs we want. I mean, nothing if our young boys aren't playing first team. Yeah, that's brilliant at the moment. So you have a period under Stevie, and then Peter Grant comes in, a really difficult time. You then made head of academy, which you're doing now. So what does that job entail? Well, Bill's the head of academy, Bill Hendry. So Bill will do all the admin stuff, he'll deal with all that. And I think my title's head of professional. You know, it's running the academy from 18s downwards, although we've appointed somebody, Barry Malcolm, to do the children's, the 13s and below. So I'll put all the curriculum together for the academy, appoint the right coaches who I think are right for the age groups, and everybody will be doing the same per week, per curriculum. So if we're working on attacking, all the coaches have been attacking that week, so we're all discussing what's going on and, you know, showing each other sessions. I'll be part of that, and certainly how we want to play. It'll be driven down for the 18s, you know, and a lot of it as well. You know, if the first team are playing 3-5-2 at the weekend, you know, we'll throw that in for them as well. This is what they have to do, because if Sam Young's going in there playing, well, I'm only playing a back four with the 18s, he's got to know how to play a back 3-2 or back five. So there's that piece, but it's just, you know, that's more of it. It's all curriculum, you know, and it's just, here's the standard, this is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And what is it we look for in a young player as a football club? What stands out for you? Well, we always say this, and for me, I'm always looking at attitude. Attitude, you know, I always look at technical as well. If their attitude's no good, what's the point in putting in the first team? They're not going to get there. You know, they're going to fail. Technical ability, you know, you look at Liam Hogan breaking into the first team right now, really technical. Andrew's really technical. Sam's technical for centre back. Taylor, you know, maybe not as technical as other, but you know, he's got a heart that he's got that drive as well. But you know, I'm not really after the physical player at younger, because I know they'll physically develop through time, and it may take some longer than others, so you've got to be patient with them. But it's more that for me, their attitude has got to be first class. They've got to respect folk. They've got to come in there and show, you know, that they want it, and that comes down to, you know, how good they are on the ball and how they can express themselves. I hate kids that come in and moan and whine, and when they give the ball away, they blame other folk. You suss them out pretty quickly. You know, I want kids who are invested, who breathe football. They're always asking questions. They're always sit down with you, watch videos. You know, you'll do your IDPs with them, and you'll see them delivering it during sessions. That's what I look for. You know, and then when you see it and they're living it day to day, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. That's why you're in it, eh? Aye,
And technical, so many things, eh?
Yeah.
Same with their attitude. But physicality, doesn't it? You know, if you look at, yes, as a centre-back, we want somebody that's big and tall that can, you know, look at a Reece Breen, a Sam Fisher, a Benedictus, they're your first team players. We have to try and find that model behind that. We've got Sam Young, you know, a John Todd, who's that stature, in that position. You know, and you look at an Aaron Comrie, you know, he gets up and down the pitch really well. That's the first team, that's what they're after. So we have to try and, you know, look at that for the academy. But they've got to be, there's no point in you can run fast but you're crapping the ball. I could go and watch somebody else. You know, I could go and watch a boys club team here and pick somebody that can run fast, but they can't trap the ball. So that's what I'm saying. Their technical has to be great. They've got to be good technically, and they've got to have a know-how to play the game, and a willingness to learn.
It's quite early days for the Football Club Academy. Obviously, we split up from the Fife Elite kind of format. You must be quite excited about what's kind of going on, and just seeing 3 or 4 boys who are regular in the first team already.
Aye, and I think that was my big thing when we came in. It was the club's transition with Fife Elite. I think I knew maybe a wee while before that I was going to go step into this role, which I was delighted about. And the academy had to get better. There's no point in having an academy if there's no product on the pitch. That was my big thing. We as a club, there's so many players that go away from Dunfermline and go on to have a career elsewhere. There's Callum Smith now, was at us, went to wherever, Airdrie or Hamilton and Airdrie, and it's Livingston as well, eh? And he's now back at Wraith. Mm-hmm. He was one of our own. Now he's back at Wraith. There's Cammy Gill, you know, struggled, went away to Arbroath, now he's at Montrose. Stuart Morrison went away, he's now at for guys who maybe could have had a career here as well, and that's the tough piece of it. But it's so buoyant now. It is, and there's a lot of. During the past, the clubs are a lot more money than what they've had previously to now, right? So I don't know if they're forced to play young boys more than what they ever have. And yes, the first team have got injuries that maybe has put Andrew in there, but Andrew deserves to play. You know, as James has always said in his team talks after the game, and he's very understanding of where he's at in his career and how well he does from a day to day. You know, we see that at academy level, day to day. And they're deserving of playing. Even Liam, you know, he's coached last night with Liam. He was wanting to put him on for the last 20 minutes type thing. And that's pleasing because Liam's there. He's only been in a month. But we see that week in, week out, day in, day out with the academy. And that's how we want them to transition quicker, as I said about Matty Todd and McCann and Paul Allen. It's hard. You know, the standards, the level, it's a big jump for 18s to first team. So we have to try and prepare them that way. But I think the hard part is, as I said earlier, is there's a lot of people that's left that's maybe been good enough, but it's maybe through finance and players coming in.
Just at the wrong time for them.
It's struggled a wee bit, whereas now we realise how important the academy is.
Yeah.
And I think James, being part of an academy programme at Dundee, being academy director there, seeing how it works, he's very good at bringing young boys into the team at the right time.
Plus, from a club point of view, with the supporters, like there's nothing better than being a fan and watching local young boys coming through.
That's right.
Love playing for the club.
Right. And that's
a win-win, eh?
It is a win-win, and fans are more patient as well with younger boys. And it's a good squad to come into now too. You know, they're winning, they're doing well. They've had a great season last season. It's great to come in and be part of. Plus, you want to learn from a Matty Todd, a Paul Allen and McCann. You've got boys that have came through the same process that are quite close, and Miller Fenton as well. So there's a good group there. You know, you're thinking Miller Fenton, McCann, Paul Allen, Matty Todd, Andrew Todd, Sam Young, Taylor Sutherland, Jake Sutherland, Liam Hogan. You know, you've got Beagley Rennie there as well, right? And you've also got the next batch coming through, right? And then you think, hopefully that'll not happen, but 4 or 5 years there's 8 guys there, 9 guys there starting on the first team that have came through our academy programme.
That's the vision, eh? That conveyor belt.
It is. And then
it's a good thing to worry about.
Then it becomes, you know, your other teams come and start watching you. They become, the players are assets now. And it's not just these guys. I mean, with Chrissy Hamilton, Josh Edwards, Aaron Comrie. You know, I'm pretty sure they've got really good names now, and they're still young. I remember signing Aaron Comrie for St Johnstone. Just good player, good boy. Mm-hmm. And then now we've got Kane as well, eh? So it's not just local boys coming through the academy. It's a mixed part of a good group coming together at the right time, and it's like a great age.
Yeah.
You know, it's not all old guys, and that's where the club, I think, has benefited. You know, even from going down last year, we got rid of a lot of players.
It's allowed us to rebuild, eh?
Completely.
Yeah. Is there any you're really excited about that maybe the fans haven't seen yet in the first team environment? Any you could name?
Well, they see bit parts of Andrew. You know, I think Andrew at 18's, you know, some of the stuff he does is genius. And you seen him last week against Kilmarnock, he was trying to chip the goalkeeper, all that. He did that every game for us. He's just a natural football player that picks the ball up, and just his vision and awareness of when to get on it, how to create at the right time. And the only thing that's missing is a goal. He'll be frustrated because he's not scored. I know what he's like as a boy. He'll be beating himself up. You've got Taylor, who's lightning quick, and came in and scored 2 goals now. You know, Celtic and last night. So, even, you know, we know Sam, we know what he's capable of. He's played 2 or 3 games as well, but there's ones behind that as well. You know, we've got 8 boys in right now full time. The young boys, they're doing well. You know, not everybody will make it. That's part and parcel of, you know, the job we're in. You give them opportunities, and not everybody does make it. That's a hard piece, but it might not be as many over the next 2 or 3 years that are coming through, because we've had a good batch of 06s. It might be 2s and 3s or 1s and 2s, but there's certainly players there within the academy, and that's where I go down to. We have to, you know, individualise them, you know, do what's best for them, and focus on their strengths and their weaknesses, and that's how they become better. Then hopefully kick them on the first team. But you can tell players that are going to play for the first team.
Yeah.
I look through the academy and I say, he's going to play first team.
Can you spot it at like 13, 14-year-old? That early on?
I think it's hard. And usually find that, you know, with your old firm or your bigger clubs, all these guys go to Rangers and Celtic, and I always say, you know, when you speak to their parents, that's fine. You can go there, but you'll be champing my door again at 16. And if you're any good or you're better than what we have, I'll bring you in. But if you're not, I'm not bringing you in. So you can travel every day to Glasgow. If you want to travel every day to Glasgow, you'll end up getting peed off with it. But you can champ my door again at 16. And it usually does happen. So not everybody makes it, and that's the thing. How many guys make it at Rangers and Celtic? Very few. Very few. You know, they're usually come out on loan and go elsewhere anyway. So 13 and 14, I think it's hard. Really hard, unless you've got a Ronaldo, some machine. But you see it, because we look at our guys that are 2 or 3 years behind this batch are in the now, and you can see moments of, oh my God, some of their touches and that are better than some of the players that I've had in my 18s last year. And they're 2 and 3 years behind. But they've still to grow. Steve Kernan, our sports scientist, does a fantastic job. Has them on a Tuesday night, the kids, albeit for an hour, but he's really up to date with, you know, all the things they should be doing, and it's just the growth in them in a year. And it's hard because, you know, growth maturation, big thing, you know, the big guy against the wee guy. It's easy to put the big guy against the wee guy, but you've just got to let them develop.
Yeah.
And that's where some coaches find that frustrating, that, you know, the big guys always win. That's fine. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know, it's just believing in the younger player and making them understand where they're at. But you can see things in them and you can think, oh aye, okay. You know, I watched a game the other night when we played Crossgates. We lost 5-0 with the 18s. A really young squad, because we're in a little bit of transition now because a lot of boys in the first team, which that's your job.
Yeah.
To put them in there. But you see some of the things the other night and you think, oh aye, he's got a real chance. You do. And it's great
exciting,
to see.
for you as a coach.
It's putting them out their comfort zones, and that's what's frustrating as well. I didn't get me wrong, I get frustrated in the sidelines with them because they get the ball away stupidly in stupid areas at the wrong time. And how do you see that? Why? Well, they didn't win that header that the big guy bumps them. You think to yourself, you know, I can see them progressing at the first team, no problem. You know, but it's just the consistency from them as well, and not everyone's going to make it, but it's been there for them, and it's trying to get that right mix, and that's what I've found since we've came in to run the academy programme. There's been and it's tough. We've released a lot of boys, and I mean that in a positive way. We've released them for the benefit of them, because it's easy to hang on to players and keep hanging on to them and just we'll just keep them as a number. You're not doing them any favours, and you're not doing the better players in the group who you think are doing well as well. So it's hard when you sit down with them with their parents. You know, that's a tough part. There's always that protection piece on the kid, and you know, it's, well, you got it wrong. Okay, that's fine. And it's hard to make a call on kids young as well.
Yeah.
And then you've got to understand where they're at in terms of their sports science or the data with it too. So it's not just looking at the player where is it now, it's potentially where he's going to be 2 years. And that player just now who's maybe ahead of him is not going to be ahead of him in 2 years because, you know, he's going to catch up with him growth-wise.
Yeah.
So there's a big, and that's where the 18s are at right now. We've got probably 3 age groups in the 18s where we should really only have 2. Last year we had 2. So we're in a wee bit transition, but I think what will happen there is, I always think when you breed youth so early, the 18s will become really good because they'll take a little while to adapt, and then all of a sudden they become really good as well. And I don't care if I win the league. I turn up at games, right? And folks say to me, oh, your 18s are doing brilliant. Your 18s are doing brilliant. And I say, what do you mean? My 18s, oh, you won last night. Okay. If my 18s win every single game and we win the league and I get nobody in the first team, I'm out of a job.
Yeah.
That's the reality of what it is, eh? And I think, see, when you're talking to parents as well with it, you've got to... The board, Thomas, everybody's put their trust in me to make judgment and my staff to make judgment on players. And that's why we employ, I think, the right people at 18s, 16s, 14s that can make that call. Are not scared to make that call and are very honest. So that affects them later on, right? So they're coming through that process and the numbers have reduced greatly. So we've went tighter with the squads. So kids get more game times, right? There's no that 6 players or 7 players sitting on the sidelines that are only playing 20 minutes. It's so competitive. And players are playing up, they're training up, some players are playing down. We've got U16 players that are, you know, that are underdeveloped, that are playing down at 14s because their size can't cope with it.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on that a lot of people didn't know. Eh?
Fans would just not see any of that.
They didn't. And that's why I really enjoy what I'm doing. You know, it's...
There's so much to it, eh?
There is so much to it. There is, and, you know, Bill Hendry, you know, Bill 64, Bill does an unbelievable job. Brilliant. He's so switched on, so smart at what he does. And he just gives me the reins. The football piece, you take care of, Greg. I'm not interested. I'll deal with the admin, deal with the parent side. Aye, okay, no problem.
You're quite happy with that, eh?
But when it comes to valuations, Bill's nowhere to be seen.
Right.
It's to do with the parents, Bill's And that's a tough part. It's releasing players. And I said it earlier, usually when you release players, it's for the benefit of them. But I think even being part of this, the older kids, when you release apprentices, I think there's only really been one player over it, and I may get hammered for saying this, but I'm not bothered, that it's one player I've really lost sleep over that I've released is probably Paul Brown.
Right.
Because I felt he was more than worthy of a contract at the time, and it didn't break my heart, but I actually lost sleep over the kid. I was like,
You could just see something in the boy.
Believe it. He was a Dunfermline boy, he lives down the bottom of town, and just was there every morning, you know, he'd do in and what you want me to do today. And his attitude in the pitch was unbelievable. You knew what you were getting week in, week out. On you go, you got on with it. And it really stung. It stung. And I thought, I've made a mistake here. I really made a mistake. And what usually happens, they leave, kids move on, they go and play junior. He went to Stenhousemuir and he was playing for Crossgates the other night. He put in a few pounds to the wee bugger. But you could see that he was still a good footballer.
Yeah.
You know, but they find their way in life. But we had Paul Allen and Matty Todd at that time. Paul Brown wasn't going to play.
Yeah, same position.
And that was our conversation with Stevie during that period as well. It was, he's not going to play, and that's where it was so hard, because through attitude and just guts and sheer determination, he deserved it. But the technical piece of what these others had, they were ahead of him.
Yeah.
And it was tough.
Well, it's exciting times though, Greg. He's doing a great job. As a supporter, I'm excited, so keep at it.
No, thank you. Thank you.
One final question in the academy though.
Aye.
Is Andy Junior better than his old man?
I think so. I do, aye.
I know you're good pals with Toddy, so.
Aye, the three of them are better than his old man. John's just coming behind him.
Yeah.
John plays centre mid or centre back. And wee Charlie's, I think he's under 13 right now.
Right.
Charlie.
Amazing.
But they always say Charlie's the best out of the three of them. I'm just saying that to have a pop at Andrew and John. But no, there's talent there, but you can never tell where they're going to go. I mean, Charlie's he's only 13, and there's probably a lot of pressure on him because Andrew's in, and John's maybe got a pathway as well or doing well. So he'll see it, and the other two are obviously under pressure because their dad used to play, and their dad's a legend here. But anybody who knows Big Todd, he's the most level-headed guy you'll ever meet.
Yeah. So
good parenting from his point of view, and he's been great with me. But I keep saying to folks, it's great having them. It's not about the Todds because there's more talent there.
Yeah.
There's more talent within, and there's talent coming through, and it's not a team we're trying to form. It's just that one or two individual players.
Yeah. Nah, brilliant stuff. We're going to reflect back on your career. You've had an awesome career, obviously. How would you sum up your career as a footballer?
I'd probably say I maximised what I had. Regret-wise, I said earlier, maybe 2 or 3 fallouts I had down south. Maybe should have stayed down there a wee bit longer. But I'd like to think, looking upon fans looking at me, I did try my hardest for any club I was at. Probably did too much away from the game to better myself, and maybe should have rested more. But no, I think they would see me as a good performer for Dunfermline, a good performer for Kilmarnock, and still Charlton fans call me this day and say I had a good career there.
Superb. In terms of memorabilia, did you collect anything over the years?
I won a championship down there.
Right.
So we won obviously the championship now, which was League One. So I got the medal in there. That was the old, that Kevin Keegan and Kenny Dalglish used to win that cup at the time, and I thought it was brilliant going on the pitch lifting this thing up.
Before it rebranded to the championship.
Aye. Kenny Dalglish used to lift this thing. What? And he was my hero as a kid. My hero. Like that, 2 losers medal cup final.
Did you keep any shirts?
I was never a shirt guy.
Nah,
even the Ajax game and all that. I think it was Derek McInnes that took over Mars Top. I was never one of these guys that would go up to somebody after a game saying, "Give your shirt." It just wasn't me. Because then it shows that you think he's a better player than you type thing. Oh, I played against him. Nah.
No interested.
Not interested, because I'm not really wanting my shirt anyway. Depends who it was, but wasn't bothered.
What about superstitions? Did you have any as a player?
I did, aye. I used to, my boots were always tight, really tight, and I would soak them in boiling hot water before every game I played, right? And they'd be sitting there regardless if it was freezing outside, and I'd put Raljecks on my toes, deep heat on my toes, right? So I'd go out, my feet were burning by about 20 minutes. they were freezing cold and numb.
Yeah.
Oh, it was horrible. But I liked the feel of my boots being really soft because they were tight, and I liked the feel that I hated big boots, or shiny boots. I liked the leather, and I just...
What do you think of boots today?
I'm not a fan of them.
No.
Not at all.
Are you a traditional, old school black boots?
Aye. When I first got my pair of white boots, I think it was down, I got them white and red. It was Nike's, red Nike Tech with white, and I felt under pressure wearing them, I did. But now, all our academy players wear black, not allowed to wear other boots.
Is that a club point? Is that one of the rules?
For the academy, aye.
Nice.
Solely for that.
I like that.
And then obviously when they come in here and they're full time, they're buying all sorts of colours. Then they come back doing train mails and they get told to take them off.
What were your favourite boots as a player?
Did
you wear the same style of boot? Like
I was actually
certain make or?
I was actually sponsored by Fila when I was down south. And you spoke about it earlier. The Fila boots were weird. They were a carpet material, or you got the leather, and they had the big Fila at the back in yellow. And I remember the goal you was talking about, we scored against Nottingham Forest. I scored, and the woman went on this big run, and I slid. And I was wearing Nikes. I'd pulled the tick off and everything the side of them. And as I put my feet up in there, the Nike tick's looking at the guy's taking a picture of it. Monday morning feels like that. See you later. I was like, oh God. But when I came back here, I think Valsport at the time. I thought Valsport were good boots, just the leather on them. But I think it was Nike.
Nice.
Just black Nikes with a gold or silver tick. That was it. Moldies, never wore Moldies when I played. It was always studs regardless. I liked the feeling, when you're going for tackle, stuff like that you meant business.
Yeah.
But no, aye.
Nice one. Who was the biggest influence on your career?
Obviously, my mum and dad. You know, they were huge. My mum used to drive me back and forward all the time. You know, we'd get the expenses off of Rangers or Celtic or whoever. They'd give you the envelope with the crisp pound notes in it. I don't think my mum ever seen them. I actually said to her, "Wait there, did you ever?" She goes, "What? Are they pound notes?" They were. I said, "Aye, they were brand new." She said, "Never ever saw it." Mum and dad, definitely. I think the early part, I touched on it earlier, John Black had a big, I looked up to him. Alistair Stevenson, huge. Even when I'm doing team talks with the boys, I always speak about him, who obviously went on to Hibs and had the good Hibs players coming through. But I'd probably say Dick.
Right.
Dick coming here. Aye. Billy Kirkwood was good to me at the time. I think I earned the respect for the coaches there because of my work ethic. McGregor and John Brown. But no, obviously, as your career goes on, your wife, she's a big part of it. You know,
the real boss.
Your highs and lows, and you're coming back, you're pissed off. You're not talking to the kids for a couple of days. You're taking out in the dug, and
yeah,
you know, I was always like that. You really got to me. I think even when you're the captain piece as well, it gets to you a wee bit more. When the club was struggling, really struggling under Stephen Kenny, it was tough. It was a tough time. So fair play to her for putting up with me during that time.
Brilliant. Who was your best friend in football?
I think Big Toddy, Big Scott Wilson. Probably, you know, Scott Thompson. I would probably say, I think Big Toddy and Scott would probably be my two best mates that I've had. I grew up with Scott coming through, you know, boys club and at Rangers, and obviously Big Toddy. I wouldn't say I was Toddy's best mate when I first came here,
right?
But I think we grew into a relationship after that. But great big boy. Toddy would just go away. I think it was with Mark Mullery go away at the gym, I'd go my other way, you know what I mean? But I think we grew into a relationship and became really good pals.
Brilliant,
there's
mate.
others, I mean, you pick up guys, there's Gary Mason a couple of months ago at the Glen Pavilion. Mm-hmm. Just call him up, he'll be there for you. Good boys. And I've probably missed loads through your earlier days too that you still keep in touch with, but they two are probably the first two that spring to mind.
Nice one. And final question, what did you learn most about yourself playing football?
Probably too serious on a day-to-day basis. I don't know, I always wanted the best. I was frustrated when other teammates wouldn't work as hard as you, would go to the gym, would piss around, did runs, just did enough. I can't accept that.
Yeah.
Because I felt as if I'm putting it in and others aren't. But the other players maybe have more ability than me. You know, and that was probably, I should have just chilled out a wee bit, but I'd get pissed off, I'd fall out with them. And maybe I'm right, you probably say to me I was right to do that, but I don't know, I'd probably like to have chilled a wee bit more. I look at how funny and how witty Scott Thompson was and how laid back he was. Just a good teammate, good captain, good leader. Scott Wilson, more chilled than what I was as a player. But that's who I am as a person, eh? You know, that's what I probably learned most, was that maybe a wee bit too serious and overdid the gym work, and probably it was a catalogue of injuries along the back of that. Maybe it was a plastic pitch. Maybe I should put a lawsuit against the club on a plastic pitch.
Well, Greg, thanks for your time. That's been great to catch up with you and hear some stories, so thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe to this podcast, which is available on all popular platforms such as Apple iTunes, Spotify and Google Podcasts. Thanks to our guest on this episode of Walking Down the Halbeath Road. This podcast was produced by Jan Motkiewicz and music supplied by Stuart Dusty Miller. We look forward to speaking to another former player in the next episode. Thank you for listening.